wondering if you can use camels to control weeds on your farm or property? Stay tuned. We're going to be answering that question.
This is the Camel Connection podcast.
Welcome to our weekly Camel Q&A.
This is where you ask a camel question and we answer it.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Russell. And together, with other camel experts, we answer your camel questions. Hi everyone and welcome back.
Welcome back to another episode of Camel Q&A.
Yeah, that's it.
Today we are talking about if camels can help with weed control on your property or farm. And or farm. Yeah, or ranch or, whatever obnoxious weed you might have growing on your property. Can camels help with that? It is, in Australia particularly, it's it's not very well known, but it's sort of getting known that camels can help control certain weeds.
And I'm glad you said certain. I'm really glad that you said certain because some weeds they'll go for and other weeds they won't.
And some are poisonous.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And a lot of farmers, whether that be for raising beef and dairy farms and things like that, or people that just want to clear their property of obnoxious weeds, things like, in Australia at least, like capeweed and mostly blackberries, people seem to have a problem with that.
It's interesting as blackberries. I mean, when we bought this property, the back paddock was absolutely choked with blackberries.
Yeah.
And it came back to us, camels don't eat blackberries. Do you remember that? Someone actually commented to us.
Someone who probably didn't know what they were talking about said that.
Well, yeah, maybe. But look, they just attacked them.
Well, it's a very sad thing for us because we don't get blackberries.
No, we don't.
We can't do the whole jam thing and everything because we never have fruit because they really do keep the blackberries down.
They don't get rid of them.
No.
Right,
I don't want to jump around too much here. I want to keep on track. So let's just go with the flow.
Well, we'll get back onto that.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. So, a lot of farmers use camels as a co-grazing animal with like beef or bovine. So we're talking about, raising beef or dairy cows. And the interesting thing that they have found just from our talking with them and getting feedback and stuff is that the camels will often eat what the cattle do not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you've got an acre of land, for example, and it's got weeds on it as well as the grasses, your woody weeds and that sort of stuff, the herbs and that sort of thing on the ground. And if they're the type of weeds that camels love, and there are lists of this sort of thing.
Are there? Where's the list?
There are. I'll have to research that.
I don't think there is a list.
Yeah, there is.
Is there?
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably hidden in Google, about 15 years old.
Well, it's still there. I remember seeing a list of the weeds that...
well, if we find it, we'll make sure we reference it here.
Yeah, please do. That'd be good.
Yeah, well, I'm not, because I think it's hidden in Google very, very well.
It is definitely there. But, so what they'll do is they'll reduce those weeds right down. They won't necessarily eat them out fully.
It's control.
But they'll control it, allowing the grasses to come through and expand and grow and take up more of that acre for the cattle to eat.
Well, this is the really interesting thing about how camels actually eat is they don't eat really close to. Well, they prefer if they've got no other choice, they will eat really close to the ground, for food's sake. But they won't generally eat really close to the ground. So we, our property isn't full of, we don't have a lot of native shrubs and stuff here. We do have some, but we notice with our camels is that they will eat to a certain height, and then because we got enough room for them, they will go to the next patch and eat that to the certain height. And then by the time they get to all these 5 or 6 different patches, they'll go back to the first one. And then that's grown its height that little bit more so that they can eat to their level again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really intelligent when you think, like, you know, that they're getting the best, which is the stuff that's closest to the sun, and the stuff underneath that obviously doesn't have as much nutrition as, you know, the stuff that's...
Well, it also might be just simply, you know, it's a more
Taste.
comfort level too, you know. They're not dragging their lips all over the ground trying to...
Well, this is the thing, because that in itself can cause fungus issues on their lips and stuff if
Well, isn't it also where they pick up the parasites?
parasites that I think they grow... I could be incorrect about this.
2 centimetres or so?
No, it's like 3 inches, 4 inches.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Something, don't quote me on that. It's, you know, I've got a lot in my
But
brain.
it's a certain height.
Yeah, it's a certain height where parasites will actually, they won't climb any further than that, if you want to call it climbing. Yeah, so a lot of people have had great success managing co-grazing cattle, and, well, I'm specifically talking about cattle and camels because that's just what we've heard of. I mean, other options are there too.
Yeah. Yeah, so look, let's get back to our situation because people would be interested in that. Like I said, the paddock was absolutely choked with blackberries, and
Interestingly enough, that before we got here, they had goats to manage it,
they had a lot of goats,
and it was still very. You couldn't even walk down the paddock without getting caught through blackberries.
No, that's right, and what the camels did was they ended up eating into the blackberries and making little pathways. You remember that?
I do.
And slowly eating from the outside these clumps, if you like, of blackberries, eventually getting them smaller and smaller until there was nothing really left. We've noticed over the couple of seasons that we've been here, the little shoots of blackberries will come up and through, but the camels will manage those.
It's like lollies. They're straight into it.
Straight into it. So it hasn't actually got rid of the blackberries yet.
But it's controlled.
Yeah, it is controlled.
Well, it's
and the
because
weeds and the grasses have started to grow where the blackberry bushes were.
Yeah, which is interesting. So they're not like, you know, horses will kind of, well, from what we've noticed, is the equine will rip out grasses, you know, as they eat. But camels don't do that. So they're not like ripping out the weed. They're just eating the tops of it, letting it grow a bit. But like you said, like there's all these little other things, herbs and all sorts of things growing around it because the sun's able to get to it.
Able to get to it, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, in sort of hindsight of this paddock, if we actually had cattle on the property, then the land space that we've got now for cattle has actually increased because of the fact that we've got camels that shoot down the weeds.
So it's worked successfully for a lot of people, and I mean, also it's not just weeds as well. Like people who are raising beef, there was a study done many years ago of beef co-grazing with camels, and how the camels' bacteria that when they drink from the same water sources and water troughs actually helps the digestion of the beef cattle, which actually helps them because their digestion's improved. They're putting on more weight and they're going to sell at a higher market value.
Yeah, the bacteriums that the beef cattle pick up from the camels,
because they eat different foods.
They break down cellulose better. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many good things about using camels for weed control. I mean, we don't use our camels for weed control, but they do it anyway. But some people specifically get camels, especially in Australia, for managing their weeds. But a point that I would really like to make is, and an often quite a misconception about the camels, is people often think that camels, and are told this, that camels are very hardy.
Yeah, look, it's commonly sort of sprouted around, and it's something that I certainly believed when I first got into camels. But, you know, that's what I was told, and, you know, they're hardy and all this sort of stuff. But now, understanding a little bit more, especially from Margie and her talks.
Margie Bailey is the camel vet that we have in our Camelier Academy membership, and she does monthly talks. And, you know, like, we had this idea that camels are hardy because we were told that, right? But in the end, like from our experiences of having domesticated camels, we're like, they don't seem that hardy. And then,
no, that was going to be my point.
Yeah.
Is that Margie has enlightened us really that camels will actually pretend a lot.
Yeah, well, they don't mean to. It's a survival.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, but they will, and even if something's wrong and they're not right, and usually, often from what we've discovered through Margie, I mean, parasitics is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the things, but but they'll pretend so much that they're okay, so that
so they survive
from their survival instinct that the lions and tigers and bears won't see them as the weakest link.
So yes, camels appear to be hardy, but they're actually not. They do need proper management. So if you're thinking of getting camels to manage weeds on your property, there are other husbandry management things you'll need in place for the camel. And we lay out all those things in our Camel Husbandry ebook. Otherwise, you're not going to have these so-called weed-eating like animals, available for very long, because they might be good for a couple of years, seem like they're really doing their job, and once a camel gets sick, they're in their survival mode. Once they get sick and they're showing all the signs that they're sick, everything's kind of downhill from there. And camels are real.
It takes them a long time to come back.
It does, yeah. And a lot of work, and with any sick thing,
it's best not to go
prevention
there in the first
before
place.
the cure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And look, I mean, there's other weeds. Getting back to the weed situation on properties, things like bracken, the fern-like bracken. Now we've certainly got that prolific here in Australia, and whether or not I don't know if it's overseas that much.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've certainly got this fern-like weed called bracken. Nothing really eats it. Camels, if they're not used to it, if they move to a property that has got some bracken, they will have a go at it, and they may not feel too good afterwards. And generally, what I've noticed with camels is that with poisonous plants, they'll have a bit of a go at it and not feel good about it, and they won't touch it again.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, right? It's not always the case. Sometimes they might get a high out of a particular plant or something like that and go back for more, and it might be toxic. So you've got to be cautious of that. But one thing I've noticed about trees that the camels don't really like is they'll rub themselves up against it, or they'll roll in it, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the bracken that was on our property, we've still got bracken.
But they sit on it.
But they actually sit on it.
They're like, this is a nice little nest.
Yeah, and so they actually squash the stalks that way, and so the bracken appears dead, and if they do it at the right time, then basically it will be, and that's when the grasses will start growing through again. But there's still bracken.
And there's a lot of prickly things. Like, camels love prickly things. Like, I mean, just think they're a desert animal, and a lot of desert plants are prickly, for their own protection and survival. And, even any cacti,
devour.
That is lollies to camels. They're prickly pear, and, I know in the States there's a lot of it. We don't really know what the plant species are over there, but there's a lot that they eat that's prickly, and especially anything that's cacti, in the cacti family, so they love it.
Yeah, and look, up in New South Wales in particular, and lantana, now that's not good for camels.
Yeah.
Just in case if you're thinking, oh, look, I've got a whole pile of lantana on my property. Well, they won't, it's not good for them.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Even manuka.
Yeah.
Look, they might have a bit of a nibble at it, but to be honest, they won't get rid of it. No, that's not one for getting rid of. So there's just a couple of species.
All the European ones.
Yeah, and you do have to, of course, be cautious of plants like, I'm just thinking of, what's that one with the nice pretty flower? A lot of people have them as ornament plants.
Passion fruit?
No.
Okay, we'll get back.
We'll go back to another one. Yeah. Look, you do have to be cautious. I suppose that the message is you do have to do your research with your plants. and to see if there's plants that have got any sort of toxicity in them whatsoever. And of course there's great plant books out there. So if you're buying a property for your camels, and that sort of thing, you'd have a look at the plants that are there already. And do your research on those particular plants.
And the best way to do that research is go. And I know camels and cattle are very, very different. But if you ask the local people who have cattle, what are the plants that are poisonous to cattle, then that gives you a kind of basis to work off.
Yeah, cattle, sheep, horses, I reckon. And that way, then you're covered with the bases, or most of them anyway. If the plant books say my opinion is if the plant books say that there's toxicity in the plant, no, you've got to do something about that. You're risking your camel, I suppose, at that rate. But also if you're designing your property and you planting plants, like around the house and that sort of stuff. I mean, that's something else to be considered as well. Because as much as you can have really nice fencing and all that sort of things, things do happen. Gates left open, all sorts of things. You want to be cautious of what plants you put on your property.
Yeah, we mainly stick to natives. I mean,
Oleander.
Oh, okay.
That's the name of the plant.
I knew it'd come. We stick to a lot of natives that are native in Australia. I mean, people ask us all the time, what plants are poisonous to camels? And we're like, wow, where do you live? I mean, like, we can't even work off where you live because, like, we're not familiar with that area. So this is when you need to do that research for yourself and ask local farmers and things like that. And that's where it counts. So yes, camels can help with weed control, but they're not hardy animals. They do need other husbandry requirements, and we can help you with that. You can purchase our Camel Husbandry ebook on our website, which goes through, in layman's terms, non-scientific, because we're not scientists, this is what you need to do to keep your camel healthy, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And do your own research. And if you need help with training and handling and all that sort of stuff, we can also help with that. In fact, it doesn't matter whether you got weed eaters or pets or whatever. Pet camels, like every camel, really craves connection, and they want to be with you and know about you. So that's the kind of training we offer. Yeah,
I'm just looking out the window at the moment as we speak, and look, we've got so much capeweed.
They love capeweed.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got to get out into the garden and do the weeding, and I'll chuck this capeweed over the fence, and I'll love it.
Yeah, although sometimes they're a bit fussy, then you like it fresh.
Oh, fine.
All right, well, we really hope you found this informative. Don't forget you can go over to our website, camelconnection.com, and ask your camel question. If you have anything you want to ask camel related, we're happy to help.
Totally.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you found this Camel Q&A helpful, please let us know. Leave a review wherever you're listening from.
Do you have a camel question for us? Head over to camelconnection.com to ask your camel question now.